studio. I will tell you the whole thing of why I wanted to be a tattoo artist. But yeah, I love tattoos. I also love art and drawing. Yeah, and I go by she, her.
My name's Christina Hayes. I've been tattooing for almost 10 years now. I worked at Destination Ink., which is posted a few of these. Have you been there?
I get all mine.
Oh, nice. Yeah, for Mike or?
For Mike, yeah.
Okay, yeah, he's awesome. He just had carpal tunnel surgery actually recently, but it went really well. So he's back at it again. Let's see. So I think I started being interested in tattoos more when I was like 13, but I think I always wanted to be an artist. Like some of you here had said that you've always been interested in art. And I'd say that when I was telling my parents I wanted to be an artist, they weren't necessarily like discouraging me, but when I got to a certain age, it really wasn't that cute anymore. And they're like, maybe you should consider like a real job, you know? And because like just being an artist is sort of a hard thing to quantify and like make a career in. It wasn't until one of my grandpas passed away when I was 13, I was prompted by my mom as the artist of the family to draw a tattoo for my Nana, who wanted to get a memorial piece for him. And I just drew a design up for her, and she loved it. And I got invited to the tattoo appointment. And at that point, I kind of opened up a whole new world for me on like what was possible with art, because it really wasn't on my radar at all that like tattooing was a legitimate option for me. But at that point, it really planted the seed that there was an avenue into art that could be successful for me and I could make money on, and that people were really interested in to like get something from me and not just like a painting or whatnot. And not to say that like being a painter or like a graphic artist isn't a legitimate career, because it absolutely is. But tattooing opened up a whole new realm of possibility for me that maybe you guys be interested in learning more about, which is why you're here. So Jess also has a pretty early origin story for tattooing. You want to share?
Yes, I am pretty similar to Christina. So when I was little, I used to bring Sharpies to my friends' sleepovers, and I would draw all over them. Every new sleepover, I would have friends like asking their parents for those giant Sharpie sets for their birthdays, and everyone would freak out when they got them because they'd be like, Jess's tattoo artist, right? So it was pretty known that I would do that for my friends and with my friends. And so when I was 9 years old, one of their dads walked in and was like, oh, hey, the little tattoo artist is here. And I just like felt like the coolest person ever. Yeah. And from then on, I knew like that's what I want to be when I get older. Like I want to feel this cool forever. And I love drawing. And I love sitting down with people and listening to like why they want the tattoo, whether it's like meaningful or it's just a cool picture you like. It's totally fine. I'm someone who believes that, you know, tattoos can have meaning, but they don't have to. You could just want to look pretty or feel cool. But yeah, so I wanted to be a tattoo artist since I was 9 years old. Like Christina, everyone thought it was funny. I also used to want to be a singer or an actress when I was little, so everyone just thought it was one of like those little phases I had till I was 18, and my dad was like, so are you gonna apply to colleges? And I was like, you can't really go to college to become a tattoo artist. You do an apprenticeship or you go to trade school, which is what you do here in Oregon. And he also didn't think that was funny. And he was like, cool, well, I'm not paying for your schooling. And I was like, that's fine. I have money saved up for it. So I paid out of pocket to go to trade school. And I have been tattooing ever since I got out of high school. And I actually met Christina at one of these job shadows. Like she said, we used to do them at Destination Ink., and it was me and like 4 other kids. This is like the biggest turnout I've seen. But yeah, it was really cool, except I know that when I went, it was pretty much just Nick talking the entire time, telling us about what it was like to be a tattoo artist. And at the end, he was
So they're,
like,
actually tattooing.
yeah. And at the end, he was like, so who here wants to be a tattoo artist? And it was just me. Everyone else was just like, I thought it sounded cool. And there was one other kid who wanted to be a piercer, so that was cool too. But then I stuck around and hung out and said hi to Christina. And yeah.
And I'd say most of the students that I've interacted with in these scenarios didn't really have any intention of actually becoming a tattoo artist. And that's totally okay. Like, you can be here for the information and just to get a gauge on it. You know, I didn't even decide that I was going to be a tattoo artist until I was 18 years old. So like after I had graduated high school. And I didn't even really get the ball rolling to do it until I was 20. I turned 21 while I was like in tattoo school. I would say I didn't think I was cool enough to be a tattoo artist. I just thought that like tattoo artists were like rock stars, and that like that just like wasn't me, you know. I'm like a soft, sweet, soft spoken lady, you know, and I just didn't think that I'd be that badass enough. The person who inspired me to be a tattoo artist, she went by the name Mad Marcy, and she looked like she came out of like a Cramps video, like very like 80s punk. It had like pink and black striped hair, and she was like way more badass than I'll ever be. So like that was sort of my idea of like what a tattoo artist was. And when I finally decided that I wanted to pursue it as a career, I went to Mad Marcy and was like, I'm ready, teach me. And she was like, no. Like legally she couldn't anyway. And I had no idea what I was getting into, but she gave me a lot of helpful advice at that time, and had told me that in Oregon, it's actually a lot different to become a tattoo artist than it is like in surrounding states. It's actually one of the hardest states in the US to become licensed as a tattoo artist here. But she gave me a heads up on what I could expect to get my foot in the door for the career. She gave me a lot of great advice. She kind of knocked me down a few pegs and told me that my art needed a lot of work, and that like I was too nice for this career and that it would chew me up and spit me out, were her words. Yeah, I cried about it for about 2 weeks. And then I came out with some resolve, like, you know what, I'm gonna do it anyway. And so I just went for it. And at that point, I was very determined. And though my parents weren't really supportive of like an art career at first, once they saw my intention and drive to do this and pursue it, they were totally on board at that point, and were really supportive of me. So yeah, I think that I went through a lot of stages to like get to where I am now, but it all happened pretty naturally. And so even if there's like certain aspects that are holding you back from considering it as a career, this is a great opportunity for you to kind of get some of that information that like we probably didn't have at all.
Yeah.
When we had that time. And turns out there's a lot more to it than either of us realized when we got into these careers. That tattoo is actually a little harder than it sounds. It's not just all rock star mentality and gobs of money and partying and stuff. It's actually pretty intensive to be successful in this career. And there's actually a lot of different ways to be a tattoo artist. I think that's one of the cool things about it. Like I said, I didn't think I was cool enough, but when Marcy told me that my art needed some work and that I was too nice and I decided I was going to do it anyway, I thought to myself that maybe there's room in this field for someone like me, and maybe I don't have to be as cool as Marcy to be successful. And it turns out I was right. You know, there's actually a lot of room for female tattoo artists in the field. And the industry is changing really quickly. It's actually a really unique time to get into this career, which I feel really fortunate about, because even 5-10 years ago, like it was a lot different than it is today.
Okay, so what I will say about school is that in the tattoo industry, there's, some people have different opinions on schooling. So, like we said, Oregon's the only state that makes you go to school for it. And that's just how Oregon is with most trades.
It's like going to beauty school.
Yeah, like you have to go to barber school to cut hair here. That's not a thing in most states. But it's like a cleanliness thing. So when we go to tattoo school, you learn the cleanliness of it, the laws around it, how to own a tattoo business. Depending on the school that you go to, because there are a lot of tattoo schools. Some of them will teach you the basics of tattooing, and some of them will go more in depth. For instance, the tattoo school I went to was called Captain Jack's, and it was the minimum amount, cheapest tattoo school you could go to. But in reality, they kind of all teach you the same thing. So in my head, I was like, I'm paying out of pocket for this, and you can't get student loans for tattoo school because federally it's not considered like a trade school because they don't have it everywhere. So I was like, I'm just going to choose the cheapest route. It also, they do the minimum amount of hours there. So I think it was like in Oregon, you have to do 50 tattoos and you have to do 150 hours of tattooing. And I think it's 250 hours of book work, but book work's kind of all around the place. Like they,
learn about bloodborne pathogens
Yeah.
and skin diseases and cross-contamination,
yeah,
important things like that.
you learn about the laws with tattooing and what you can get fined for, what you can get like your tattoo license taken away for. Like it's very serious here in Oregon, which is a good thing. Some people get annoyed by it, but I think it's a good thing. It keeps people on their toes and like up to date.
Yeah.
So the argument with tattoo schools is that sometimes with tattoo schools, they feel like they're just pumping out tattoo artists, which is why the tattoo scene and industry is so saturated here in Portland. But from a female's perspective, I know most female tattoo artists I have talked to have mentioned how it's much more accessible for females to become tattoo artists versus other states. You know, that's just how it's been in a lot of different industries. But that's one thing that I think is good about schooling. I also agree that it does pump out a lot of tattoo artists. But the other thing that happens with that, when you pump out a lot of tattoo artists, there's some of those people who came into the tattoo industry just to make money, but they don't realize that once you start, you don't start out just making like, you know, a lot of money. That's how any career is. But with tattooing, it really is, in the beginning, it's a hustle. We were talking about it this morning, from the first 5 years, you're tattooing as much as you can. You are putting out as much artwork as you can. You're trying to build your clientele. It's not easy. So there's people who go into school thinking it's an easy way to make money with art, and it's not. So as long as you know how to hustle and you actually are becoming a tattoo artist because you like tattoos and you like tattooing people. It's another thing you have to remember. Tattooing is a service. You are a service provider. So you still need to be kind to your clientele. You need to be accessible to your clientele. I'm up emailing and DMing clients at like 2 a.m. sometimes. And if you
work-life balance,
yeah,
sort of a hard thing to
it's really hard.
as
Yeah.
a self-employed person.
Yes, exactly. What I will say is that if you want to become a tattoo artist because you don't want to work a 9 to 5, you're going to be working 24/7. So I would choose something else. But I think that if you like drawing, you don't have to be amazing at drawing. You have to be amazing at art.
Yeah, I definitely was not an amazing artist when I first started tattooing.
Yeah.
But I did have the drive to want to be.
Yes.
And so that's what got me to where I am now. If you look at my portfolio from tattoo school and the first like couple years, like it's a world's difference. I've been tattooing for quite a while now, and yeah, you really have to be willing to lower your like idea of like, I'm going to be this kind of artist and I'm only going to do this kind of art and these clients specifically. But when you first start out, you're kind of in a position where you have to take what you can get.
Yeah.
And so that does make you pretty well versed in many different styles of art. There's so many different categories and subcategories of tattoo art, that it's like at your fingertips, basically. But I want to talk a little bit more about tattoo school. So when you go, when you want to pursue tattooing as a career, for the last 50, 75 years, tattoo apprenticeship was like the basically one and only way that you could get into this career. A tattoo apprenticeship basically means that you work under probably one artist, and they sort of vet you for quite a while, I mean, 1 to 2 years usually, and you're doing basic tasks that aren't necessarily tattoo related. Like you're kind of just in the environment of the tattoo studio, kind of absorbing as much of that knowledge as you can, just like being there. They're not really too concerned about teaching you how to tattoo for a while, because they want to make sure that you are truly interested in this career for the right reason. Tattoo artists have been very protective of their field for a very long time, and I'd say that's a primary reason why tattoo schools today have so much negative hate coming from a lot of like old school tattooers. As Jess said, they feel that they're pumping out artists that maybe wouldn't be able to maintain that as a career, or like flooding the market with just like kind of mediocre artists that aren't really invested in it for a lifetime. And these people that are really protective of this field, another reason why they're going to be really protective is that they're self-employed. And when you're self-employed, there's no sick days, there's no health insurance, there's no retirement plan, there's no unemployment. Like your craft is affected by the effort that you put into it every single day. And so when old school tattooers see the market being sort of flooded by like people who just kind of casually be like, you know, I've got some money for my parents to pursue a trade, I'm gonna go for it, and not really having a lot of conviction to like really want to do it, that I'd say alarms a lot of people that have been doing it, being in the industry for a long time. So I think that there's something legitimate to think about. This tattoo school that I went to, it's no longer in business. The person that taught me how to tattoo, he unfortunately died of lung cancer. But the advice that Mad Marcy had given to me back in the day, she said that every tattoo school is going to have a different reputation, and in Oregon, like you're going to have to go to one anyway. And so she told me to inquire to as many tattoo artists as I could speak to, and ask them about the reputation of every school and what school they went to and what they've heard about each one of them, because that does make the next step harder or easier. If you go to a school like Jess had, where they're trying to get you out as quickly as possible, you can, and I think in Oregon, you can get your tattoo license in as little as 4 months.
Yeah.
And I'd probably be around $8,000 or $9,000, I would guess.
Also, another thing to remember about trade school tattooing is that it's person by person basis. So you're going on your own schedule. You're not like going into a class with a bunch of other people and
It depends.
graduating at the same time. Yeah. Usually it's like you're doing your own thing, and you can either take 4 months or you could take 6 months or a year or something, depending on the school.
Yeah. And so the tattoo school that I went to, I actually went there for a year. And I had like a little bit more of an intimate relationship with the person who was teaching me. And that like he was like more of like a father figure to me. Like I felt he was the first person I called when I got a job, and he was really supportive of me. You know, it was really sad when he passed away, but I'd say Jess probably doesn't have as close a relationship with the guy that ran your school.
No, I run into him sometimes at the tattoo supply store and we say hi, but that's about it.
In Jess's school, how many people were in your class?
I think I met like around 40 to 50 people while I was going to school there.
So you can see her experience is a lot different than mine because I had 3 people in my class. And I got to be mentored for a year. And when I graduated, I was able to use the sort of clout, I guess, of like having gone to what was considered like at the time the most respected tattoo school in Portland. And that immediately got me a job because he knew where I had studied, knew my background and what to expect from me. And so it made getting a job really easy. Jess ended up working at Captain Jack's for a while and then started in a tattoo studio of a graduate from there who had graduated maybe a couple years beforehand.
Yes, so when I graduated, I applied at one tattoo shop, and the tattoo industry is, some people are nice, some people are not nice, like any other industry. He was not very nice to me that day. I also went home and cried after. It's not very fun sometimes, but I went home and I called my mentor and I was like, what did you just put me through? I went into it asking for an apprenticeship. Turned out it was an interview for a tattoo artist, and he looked at me and he was like, why would I hire you if you don't know what you're doing? You just went to tattoo school and you were an apprentice. Why do I have to be your teacher now? And I was like, I did not know this is what was happening. So I called my mentor and I was like, how could you do that to me? And he was like, I'm so sorry. Do you want to work here? And so I stayed there for a year. And then the person that was my coworker at my tattoo shop / school, he left and opened his own studio. And a few months later asked me to come join him. So I worked at Captain Jack's for a year. I went to school there for 6 months. I worked there for a year. And then I left there and I started working at Katie Oblos, and I worked there for like 2 to 3 years until Christina and I opened.
Yeah. So a little more about tattoo school. What else should we mention about it? Like we were saying before, it is a lot like going to beauty school. There's like a certain number of hours you have to fulfill in certain subjects. And so in Oregon, you leave tattoo school with a base knowledge of what you can and shouldn't do in order to like avoid hurting people and stuff like that. But if you were to go to California or Nevada or even Washington, getting your tattoo license is as easy as sending the state $250, and there you go, you're licensed. You can tattoo whoever you want. That doesn't mean you know anything or like are able to do it. That's why in those states you would get a traditional tattoo apprenticeship. And those are notoriously very difficult to get.
Yes.
You could be searching for an apprenticeship for years and still have struggled to get one. And then I'd say something that I do like about the tattoo school format is that you completely circumvent what I would often consider the abusive practices of traditional apprenticeships, where not only are you like not learning how to tattoo for like years potentially, unpaid internship essentially, where you are trying to prove your worth in order to show them that like you are worthy of learning from them. And then I've heard so many horror stories still about getting to that point where you finally get to tattoo and then they just like kick you out, you know, and that'd be really disheartening. The traditional tattoo apprenticeship can be pretty brutal. I think that there are exceptions. There's definitely like artists out there who enjoy teaching and want to do it for the right reasons, and then there's other people who see you as free labor and
just want a janitor for free.
And really have no intention of teaching you much of anything. And so that's why I think that tattoo school actually makes the career pretty accessible for someone like me. Like I probably would never have become a tattoo artist if I had to go through a 2-year endurance race like that. Like I don't think that it would have been chewing me up and spitting me out like Marcy had said.
It's a lot of hazing and a lot of bullying, and that's kind of why they do that, is to see like, are you worth it? can you deal with this? Because this is how your clients are gonna treat you. This is how life is gonna treat you. Are you worth me teaching you how to tattoo? Which, you know, some people argue that that's what you should go through, and some people argue that it's not
Yeah,
nice.
and what I was touching on earlier is that there are a lot of different kinds of tattoo artists. And when I was 19 or whatever, I'm like, you know what, maybe there's room in this field for someone like me. And turns out I was right, that there are so many kinds of ways to approach this career. And that's something that's really special about tattooing and being self-employed, is that you get to decide how you practice your business. And there's pros and cons to that. You know, being self-employed can be really awesome. My dad was self-employed. I kind of have a legacy of self-employed people in my family, but it's not for everyone, for sure. I'd say some qualities. We can talk about qualities of being a tattoo artist, things that make you good at it. Being a self-starter, as in Jess's words, a hustler. Being a self-starter is like probably the most important quality of tattooing, even before being a great artist. Because if you have the motivation and the self-starting quality, that you can become a great artist.
Yeah.
That's like absolutely like top tier necessary quality in order to be successful in this career.
Yeah, that's why I say you need to draw to practice. You don't have to be amazing at art. You don't have to, you know, you don't have to draw every single day, all day long. But if you want to be a tattoo artist, you are going to be drawing every day. You're drawing on people's bodies. And you're also drawing at home, which is kind of the working 24/7 that we talk about.
You know,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I work 24/7 anymore, but
Yeah.
it is definitely harder to start off with, and then
Yeah.
once you've been doing it for a while and you get a system going, like I said, I've been tattooing for almost 10 years now, so I'd say I work less and make more money than I did when I first started out. I worked more and made less money than I
Yeah.
do now.
Yeah.
And that's something to expect if you were to get into this career, which is that it's not a cash grab when you first get in it, unless if you're like a tattoo savant. I don't think either of us really were, but so we had to kind of pull ourselves up by the bootstraps, like most people. But there are some people who just like, you can just tell like they're gonna be mad successful, just because like they're just incredibly talented right off the gate. Most people have to work at it pretty hard though.
When I started, when I was in school, I had 3 jobs to pay to go to school. And I thought I was gonna end there. But then I kept them, and I had 4 jobs while I was tattooing to pay for me to be a tattoo artist. So I would tattoo on the weekends, and I would schedule like 12 appointments for Friday through Sunday, and half of them would cancel because I had just started tattooing. And even though, yes, so I had to have my 3 other jobs during the week. And it wasn't until I started taking deposits, which deposits are a big topic in the tattoo industry. You can do a drawing fee where it doesn't come out of the tattoo at the end, or you can do a deposit, which makes your client think, oh,
I've invested.
Yeah, I've invested. I've already put money in this tattoo, so I can't just cancel. I won't get that money back. That's why we do deposits. It saves you, because in the beginning I was not doing deposits, and I would have 6 people cancel on me in 1 week. And now I'll have like maybe like 2 or 3 people cancel a month and just won't care about their deposit because they're not getting it back.
Also, you're an established artist now,
yes.
so people don't want to cancel on you.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, deposits are something to think about.
Yeah, what are some other qualities for being good at tattooing?
Well, like I said about service, we are the service industry.
Yes.
You need to be nice to your clientele.
And there's plenty of tattoo artists who aren't nice
Yes.
to their clients.
And we hear about it all the time. It's
yeah.
very upsetting.
Well, just like we've run more of like a femme shop, you know, like I'd call it almost like a tattoo boutique. You know, we've got snacks. We've got like everything's all cute and clean and bright. So we got fun music. It's not like, I like metal music, but a lot of like traditional tattoo shops that you go into will just play metal and like skulls everywhere.
Very
and
angry or
it feels like a
scary.
biker shop, you know?
Yeah.
And like, we decided that when we opened our studio that we wanted it to kind of lean into our feminine clients, since both of us generally mostly tattoo women. So
Yeah.
we kind of created our business to really, I don't know, celebrate those kinds of clients and make them
Yeah.
feel comfortable. And I wanted people to come into our studio and not feel like they weren't cool enough to be in there.
Yes.
So,
And we want you to relax while you're getting tattooed, because getting tattooed is painful sometimes and it can be scary. And if you're paying all this money to get this tattoo, we hope that you have a relaxing, fun experience. We also like to treat you guys like friends, so you want to come back and get tattooed by us. There's definitely some, I've had clients who are like, yeah, I really like this tattoo and it was amazing, but my experience, I felt like I wasn't cool enough to be there, or I felt like I was unwanted.
my tattoo artist wouldn't talk to me.
Yeah, they wouldn't talk to me. So you will meet a lot of different tattoo artists.
That's what I was saying earlier, that there's basically as many ways to approach this career as there are people in it.
Yes.
And so every tattoo you receive from someone is gonna feel different, like physically, because people tattoo physically different, just like application wise. And like your entire vibe and experience is gonna be different from person to person. Like Jess and I, like, though we own a business together, like I'm sure our clients can pick out differences between her and I's, you know, approach and everything like that. Jess talks a lot more than I do.
Yes, I do.
Not that I don't talk to my clients, but you know, I'd say like your clients are probably more like your age versus like I'm 31. My clients tend to be more in the like late 20s to like mid 40 range. And I think that also brings a lot of differences too on like what our clients kind of expect.
Yeah,
stuff.
my clients are like 18 to 30. Yeah.
So since my clients tend to be a little bit older, they tend to have like big career money, and so I tend to do a lot like larger pieces. I do a lot of like sleeves, and we're got multiple leg sleeves. I'm doing both of Jess's legs right now.
Yeah.
I've got a bunch of sleeves in progress right now, and like leg sleeves in progress and everything. Whereas Jess's clients tend to be a little younger, and so they don't have quite that like career money yet. And so I
Do
think
a lot of first tattoos.
she does a lot of first
Little tiny
tattoos,
ones.
and I'd say that you get to just meet a lot more people.
Yes.
Too.
Yeah.
Like I've been tattooing for 10 years, so a lot of my clientele are repeats. Like I'd say a good percentage of the people that I work with, I've already worked with before. And so they just keep coming back to me, and that's one thing about being nice. So people want to come back to you and continue getting tattooed by you. I'd say a lot of the clients that I interact with are still looking for their tattoo artist, because for whatever reason, all the first people that have tattooed them in the past, they weren't it for one reason or another, and they come to Fern Gully and feel welcome. And I'd say that's why probably a lot of my clients are women too, is because the environment feels very welcome. But not to say that I don't like traditional tattoo shops. I get traditional tattoos. I would say that our experience is a lot different than the average tattoo experience. So, and just like us being here is kind of different than I'd say a lot of tattoo artists. A lot of tattoo artists that have been doing it for a while, as I said, they're protective and secretive.
Yeah, they don't want you to be tattoo artists.
And that's why it can be kind of hard to start off. But what is it? What's the saying? The proof's in the pudding. Like,
Yeah.
Like your art speaks for itself, and if you're a good artist and you can put out good work and your clients are happy, then it doesn't matter what other people think about you, right? So I take a lot of pride in my customer service and treating this like a service, which is why I have a lot of people that come back to me over the years.
Do you guys have any questions?
I do have a question, which you guys already kind of answered, but I just want to get a little more on it. The main question was just like, will I have to change my art style to complete actual jobs for clients? Cause I know that like, it's kind of hard if you go to like your, like a graffiti artist and be like, can you paint me a portrait? Right, so I just wanted to know more about that.
Do you want to start?
Yeah, so I talk to a lot of clientele about this, and what I like to say is, especially with Instagram nowadays, it's very easy for clients. I say when you're trying to pick a tattoo artist for your first tattoo, or just any tattoo, look through tattoo artist portfolios. It's easiest on Instagram when you can look through their art. If you like their art style and it looks like a tattoo that you want, that's a tattoo artist you should go to. But you can't go to a graffiti tattoo artist and ask them for, a portrait realism, because that's not what they do. If you wanted to take it up and you wanted to practice that, I've done that. In the beginning, I would, I didn't know how to do portraits. I didn't know how to do, I started with graffiti art too, but I didn't know how to do anime tattoos. I didn't know how to do, what is it called? Writing. Script. Yep, didn't know how to do script. But I practiced, and so now I can do stuff like that. But I think it'd be up to you as the artist whether you would want to take that on. But it's totally okay for you to say that that's not in my portfolio. I don't really know how to do that.
And so you can like cancel on a client, like,
Oh,
I like
absolutely.
this, but I don't want to do this artist.
I
don't
mean,
wanna do this
you
piece."
wouldn't be necessarily canceling on them. You would just
Decline.
decline. But what I like to do, because I know so many tattoo artists in Portland, I like to say, I don't really think that, I don't really think that, I would do the best at this tattoo for you, and I want you to leave with an amazing tattoo. So I'm going to send you a few different tattoo artists that you can look at. And I definitely recommend you choosing these people instead for this choice of artwork.
Mhm.
And say like you wanted to do a specific style of tattooing, like you envision yourself being a particular type of artist. There's ways that you can do that. I'd say though, in the beginning, you don't get to be as choosy about the projects that you take on because you're literally learning the mechanics of application. And so when you are starting off at ground zero, you don't really have the luxury of turning a lot of projects down, especially if they're simple, because you get the opportunity to practice marking someone's body permanently, period. And it's a really scary thing to a client to put their bodies on the line for someone who's never done it before. And so if you have a vision of being a particular type of artist, say you want, like I was obsessed with Jeff Gogwe when I first started tattooing. He has this very like Japanese-esque, like American Japanese style. He's very beautiful art. But I couldn't draw like that for one at the time, and probably still not really. But I basically took on any project people were willing to put my way in the beginning because that allowed me to just practice tattooing, period. And if I had been like, no, I'm only gonna take on like graffiti tattoos, then your pool of clientele shrinks very rapidly. Like
Yes.
you're not gonna have an opportunity to practice their skills at all. So yeah, you don't really get to be that picky at the beginning. But the way that you get to that point is drawing for fun your own designs. We call it flash in the tattoo industry, where you create your own pre-designs that you put out in the world, and then if someone connects with it, they're like, I want what you drew there, do it for me. And also since it's in your portfolio, your own custom drawings that may not be tattoos, but are that display like kind of art that you would like to do. That means that when people are searching through artists and portfolios and they come across yours, and be like, oh, he already kind of does that. So it might be still a custom piece. They might not pick your flash, but they can at least see that you're interested in that type of art. And that's how you kind of start specializing in something. Right now, like I've been considering kind of honing in my specialties, and I've been kind of debating a lot if I want to specialize in color or black and gray, and if I'm just gonna like stop doing one or the other. Still debating over it, but currently I would say that both of us do far more black and gray and line work than we do color. It's currently very in fashion right now. Color tattoos aren't quite as popular, but I'd say color is like where my heart is at. Like all my tattoos are color tattoos. All of my favorite tattoo artists are color artists. And so at this point, like, I don't think that I could really afford to be like, I only do color tattoos. I don't take all black and gray because that is like 70% of my income. But I do see a future for myself in a few years where I do have the ability to do that. And I think for me, the first step of getting to that point is drawing more flash. Right now, I do 100% custom work. I don't even draw flash. Jess is the flash queen at our
Yep.
studio right now.
And so custom work is like when somebody comes in and they already have an idea of what they want,
Their vision.
their vision, and then can they bring their own design to you and say, this is what I want? Or is it
So
they
that's always,
conceptualize and then you come up with the art? I know like that's
yes, okay, yes,
Yes,
and
Thank-
yes, yeah.
an intellectual property who owns.
yeah, okay,
That's a
so
top question too.
what we like to say, especially because I'm sure some of you are 18, some of you are 17 or 16. When you get your first tattoo, most likely the tattoo artist is gonna say, I can do something similar to that. There are copyright laws. You have to change a design at least 3%. And if you do not, you can get sued for that.
I never heard of that. It's so small.
Yes, yeah, only 3%, which is pretty easy in tattooing, because nothing's ever gonna be exactly the same.
Also, if it comes from your hand, it's gonna probably be 3%.
Yeah, exactly. So that's just the law. It became a law after the Hangover movie when they put Mike Tyson's tattoo on that guy's face. The tattoo artist came after the movie producers and sued them, and he won. So tattoo artists can sue people for taking their designs now. So now tattoo artists are, not only is a respect thing, like we respect other artists and their designs, but it's also a safety thing. I don't want to get sued for your tiny little tattoo. Just remember that when you're asking for a tattoo later on, if a tattoo artist says like, I can change it a little bit, and you're like, no, I want it exactly like this photo, understand we're probably gonna say no for a good reason. That being said, we don't have to change it that much. So, but it is a respect thing. I mean, if you're going to a tattoo artist because you like their work, believe in them and believe that they can design you something that you will like. If you have a good tattoo artist, they will allow you to make minor changes. It is annoying when you want to change the entire design, but if you're someone like me, I will let you because you pay a drawing fee. So if you pay the drawing fee to me, you get to change the design.
Yeah, we're a little different in that way though, but there's plenty of tattoo artists out there who do not accept changes. And we're both in this sort of minority category of people that will show you your design before you arrive for your appointment. I think most tattoo artists in the industry, you are not going to see your tattoo design until you arrive to your appointment. And it might not even be designed yet.
Yeah, we've had tattoos where we get to the appointment and they just started drawing it, which I think is unacceptable, but
Some
that's
people-
also why I work 24/7, because I'm tattooing in the studio, and when I go home is when I draw your tattoo for like 3 hours, so they've got.
Yeah, like I got a tattoo like a few weeks ago. It's my second tattoo from this person, and I show up and she's not even there. And then an hour later she comes with the design. And it's beautiful. And she whips it out in like an hour and a half, 2 hours, and it's done. It's beautiful. Like I had no idea what it was gonna look like or how much I was gonna spend on it until it was done. And a lot of people practice business that way. It's pretty normal.
It's a
actually.
pretty traditional way of doing tattooing, but
Yeah.
times are changing, and so
Like-
some people do that and some people don't.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
something I was touching on earlier is that it's kind of an exciting time to get into the field because there are a lot of changes happening. And a lot of things that I'd say are really positive changes. And getting people more involved in their design is one of those special things that I think is cool about how people are starting to do business now.
Yeah.
I would love to get tattooed by someone like me.
I want to talk about pricing for tattoos. So there's different ways to price for tattoos, kind of like other services. Some people price by hour, so they'll set an hourly rate, like $125 an hour, and then however long it takes them to tattoo you. Some people will do it like tattoo time, and on their you know,
That's what I used to do.
their battery pack, it'll say how long they've been tattooing you, and they'll charge you for that. There's some people who will start it from the minute you get there, when your appointment starts, to the minute they're done with the tattoo. That's
Doing
their
bathroom
hourly.
breaks,
Yeah.
breaks, lunch breaks.
And then
all
some
that.
people, there's people like me who do, they price by the tattoo. I'm very fast at tattooing, so if I tattooed hourly, I would just be, I would be broke. So I have to price by tattoo. And sometimes I'll price by a tattoo and I'll be like, oh, that should take 3 hours, so I'll do $450 and I'll get done within an hour or two. You're still gonna pay me $450 because we agreed upon that price. Or sometimes I'll say it's gonna take 3 hours, so it's me $450, and it takes 6 hours. You're still only gonna pay $450 because we agreed upon that price. So that's just some different ways of charging for tattooing.
Yeah, I think that it can be a little misleading also when it sounds like you make a lot of money, right? When you're like $450 for a day's work, like that sounds like a lot, right? I would say it sounds like a lot, but when you're self-employed, I think we should probably talk a little bit about the caveats of being self-employed.
Oh, yeah.
You pay your own taxes. No, there's no like employer who's kind of taking out your taxes money and paying it for you or whatever. Like you are 100% responsible for paying your own taxes, which is really hard when you get like cash in hand at the end of the day. Like I'm rich.
Yeah.
You're really not rich though,
No, you
because
just put money away in your savings.
especially for rainy day. And since you're
Yeah.
self-employed, like as I was saying before, like there's no health insurance or sick days or retirement plan or anything like that. So all that gobs of money that you feel like you have actually disappears pretty quickly when you're talking about buying your own equipment, your own tattoo inks and supplies, all your disposable stuff. And all of your tattoo machines, those can be really expensive, iPads, drawing supplies, and then rent for your business. And that can be done in a variety of ways too. Jess and I, we split a studio together. But if you are starting out, like you're not going to be opening your own studio, you know, so you're going to be working under someone else's business. You're still self-employed. But you can either work at a shop that's going to take a percentage of your income. Destination Ink took 40% of what I charged clients. 40% is pretty big.
Yeah.
And then I got to take home 60% of that. And then from 60%, I saved 30% of that for taxes. So all of a sudden that's 30% take home, right? And then I also have to take out all of the supplies that it costs me to do that. And then when you're also factoring in how long it took you to design the tattoo, not just tattooing it, but like drawing it at home, all of a sudden that $450, it's now it's more like $15 an hour, you know? So like you're actually kind of realizing that it's not the cash grab, that the money in hand at the end of the day makes you feel like it was. Yeah. So if people think that it's gonna be like a get rich quick scheme, that's really not. There's a lot of labor and a lot of work behind the scenes that your clients never see and honestly don't think about. Like it's interesting when I talk to clients, they're like, oh yeah, I didn't really consider that it would take you 6 hours to draw that at home and it only took you 4 hours to tattoo it on me. That means that I'm doing like literally over twice the amount of work that my clients even like saw on the surface, like the little tip of the iceberg, and all of that work to get to the tattoo application process is actually really intensive.
Okay, I want to talk about tipping. So tipping is not obviously required. You don't have to tip anyone. That's how everything is. But like I said, it's service industry. So the reason that most tattoo artists believe in tipping in general is because of the 50-50 split you do with shops usually. Even though you're paying $450 for a tattoo, they're only going home with half of it. So you're looking at it and you're like, well, I paid $4.50 for this tattoo, you set that price, why do I have to tip you? They're only actually getting half of it, and half of that is going to the shop. And, so that's where people usually talk about tipping. You should only tip your tattoo artist if you had a good time with them, if they were nice to you and respectful, and they treat you like a human. And, if you liked your tattoo, then you should tip. Kind of like if you like your food at a
Or you like your
restaurant,
haircut.
or you like your haircut. You know, so think about that when it comes to tipping. Tipping doesn't have to be 20%, 50%. You can do it that way and they'll always appreciate it. But also as tattoo artists, we know that once a tattoo gets to like $600, it's kind of hard to tip 20%.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, it is. So, that being said, in my opinion, don't hand them $5. It's kind of disrespectful. A lot of tattoo artists I've talked to don't appreciate that. But,
People usually tip in increments of 20 in my experience.
yeah, exactly. It's usually in 20s. But that's usually what tattoo artists think about tipping. There's some that are like, I charge you for this, so this is what I'm expecting. That's how I'm like that. I obviously set my price, and so I expect you to pay that much. And if you tip me, I'm always gonna be appreciative. Except if you give me $5, I'd be like, you can keep that. You obviously need it.
Yeah,
Um,
and also it gets you on a good rapport with your tattoo artist. Like I literally write down in the person's profile if they're a non-tipping, because like that means to me that as long as if I like expect tipping to be part of my income and it doesn't happen, that just means you have to charge a little bit more. You know, you can't like depend on tips to pay your bills, unless if you're a waitress, I guess, but.
Yeah. So
One thing I wanted to mention too was that, we talked about, giving a percentage to a tattoo studio. The other option is actually a chair fee, which is what a lot of, that's what Jess did for
what I
a
did.
long time.
Yeah.
Which honestly was a better deal for her to do the chair fee. I was probably paying like upwards of $2,000 a month, which was the percentage income that I was being charged. Versus Jess, what you were paying like
I
$1,200
was,
a month?
no, I was paying $1,000 a month
Mhm.
for my rent for my chair.
Yeah, so, I've made a lot more money since going into business for myself.
Yeah, when I talked to Christina about creating a studio together, it was always me being like, you're gonna make so much more money. Come on, let's do this.
I stayed at Destination and got a loyalty though.
Yes.
I worked there for 8 years. That's a long time to work at a place solidly. I'd say what kept me there was the camaraderie, you know? I felt loyal because despite having to give 40% of my income, I felt very respected by my coworkers. They were always really kind to me. They're some of my best friends to this day. It was just like a family, you know? And I've heard so many horror stories about tattoo studio drama that I didn't really, like, and a lot of tattoo artists that are around my age, you know, I'd be friends with them and talk to them, and they'd be leaving studio after studio because of some drama that was happening there. And I like never experienced drama at Destination Ink. They were always so kind to me. And so that's why I stayed. And I didn't want to leave until I found something that was like literally ideal for me. And that's Fernley. It's 5 minutes away from my apartment. And I make a lot more money now, and I get to create the space in a way that was like our shared vision. And I love it there. So yes, if you were to start a career, that's like your two options, is paying a chair fee or a percentage. I said the percentage is really great for beginner artists, because if you like aren't producing a lot of clients and say like you barely made any money, if you had $1,000 chair fee and you can't pay it, that means like you probably don't get to work there anymore, you know? But if you're paying a percentage, it doesn't really matter if you aren't making as much money. I mean, it does matter because like you have to pay bills and stuff, but like you still have a job because they're still getting paid, you know, and so they still want to keep you.
Yeah, when I worked at Katie Oblis, we were chair fee, and I was his first employee there. And then we had 6 other artists, and we had people going through because
We couldn't pay.
Yeah, we used to work at Captain Jack's, so we were close with our old mentor. And so sometimes students there would come and tattoo with us. And there was a few times where we had to like talk to them and be like, hey, you know, you have multiple other jobs just to pay your rent here. Are you sure that you want to tattoo here? I don't know if this is the best spot for you. You might want to go work in a 50-50 shop. Yeah, so rent always sounds a lot better, but it was only better for me in the time that it was because I was charging more, I had bigger clientele, and I was tattooing a lot, so I could afford it.
So the percentage works well for new artists, and then chair fee, it makes a lot more sense for someone that's well established. So I mean, that was like the reason I left Destination Ink, is because I've been working there for 8 years and I'm still paying a percentage. So if I worked really, really hard and wanted to make a lot of money for a vacation or something I wanted to spend money on, he was still getting 40% of that like extra effort that I was putting into it. Had it been a chair fee, all that money would have been mine. And so he probably could have kept me longer if he had changed that, but I have no regrets. And like I said, I make a lot more money now, getting a standard amount of rent. Actually, our rent now is like $700 a month per person.
Yeah.
So it's like a fraction of what I was paying and less than what she was as well.
Yeah, I mean, she used to work so much more and make so much less, and now she's working way less and making more. So
It's pretty cool.
it's pretty cool. Yeah. I'm still working just as much, if not more, because I'm a hustler and I like
Yeah, she's got the energy.
yeah, I got energy. I wanted to talk about taxes though, and write-offs. So with tattooing, you are self-employed, so you are buying your own equipment, you're buying your own needles and your own colors and all these other things. Sometimes shops, if you work in a 50-50 shop or a rental, sometimes they will
Provide disposables.
yes, they'll provide, some will provide cartridges, mine didn't, so you had to buy your own cartridges.
Probably abnormal. It'd be more like cleaning products.
Yes.
And drape sheets.
Yes, little stuff like that. But usually you have to buy your own stuff, and so that is something that's coming out of your tattoo fund. I say I probably go to the tattoo supply store maybe like once a week, once every 2 weeks, and I spend like $200 every time I go.
Yeah, tattoo supplies are expensive.
They're
So
expensive.
you get like a little bottle of ink like this big and it's
Yeah.
like $20.
Mhm. It's disgusting. And you get a pack of needles that comes with like 20 needles, it costs like $35, highway robbery. And you'll go through those needles in like 1 week. You have to buy a bunch of different needles. You don't just use one needle when you're tattooing.
They're like paintbrushes.
Yes, yeah,
So
you
you
need
have
different
different
sizes. They've got different gauges. There's round needles, which are used for drawing. There's mags, which are used for shading and coloring.
Yeah, mags are like a flat paintbrush.
Yeah,
that
they're
cover
kind of like
large
look
areas
like
at one
that.
time.
And then round needles are like this. There's tights. There's all different kinds of needles, all different kinds of sizes. I think my favorite tattoos, you can actually see the different needle weights in them. When I first started tattooing, I'd use like one type of needle the entire time. And I think that's mainly where you can tell a good tattoo from a bad tattoo, is when they have multiple different size needles in them. It's very detail oriented.
There's more to it than that.
Well, there's more, but I love line work. That's one of my favorite things with tattooing. So when I'm paying attention to good tattoos, I'm looking at the line work, and if they have a steady hand, you can tell if there's like ridges in their tattoos or if it's like a crispy straight line.
Yeah.
I could go on about that for days. But so the good thing, so yeah, it sounds bad, you're buying all your supplies and whatnot, but the good thing about that is you get to write it off during tax season, which helps. So there's different ways you can pay taxes with tattooing. Most self-employed people, you're supposed to do it quarterly, which you would just say like, I made this much money this quarter, and then you would pay Uncle Sam.
And if you don't do it quarterly, you get fined $150 per quarter.
Yep,
So,
that's
so you
what I
can
do.
you can pay it all at the end, which is what we'll do this year, but
Yep.
I'm thinking next year I'd like to save the $500, so.
I say that every year. So, it just makes it easier for me if I do it all at once. But, you'll get a CPA. Mine cost me like $300 once a year. You'll bring in, your bank statements, all of your write-offs, so all of your receipts. Thankfully, we do everything on the internet now, so you'll have it in your emails and whatnot. Just make sure to save all your receipts. But you can write off all of your tattoo supplies, all of the cleaning stuff you buy. You can write
The
off
miles you drive to work.
the
and back.
miles you drive to work and back. And then you can write off things, if you own the studio like we do, you can write off, water, gas, rent, you can write off electricity. We bought big fancy chairs for our new studio last year. We got to write off $1,200 for a chair. We got to write off our couch. You get to write off decorations and office supplies. So just like anything you buy for your business, you keep
Have to
that
track
receipt.
it. And if you
Yeah.
don't, like, it will hurt you.
Yeah,
Like,
you're
right,
just throwing away money. Like,
for example, you know, don't be like me. I didn't pay my taxes for like 5 years. It was a bad decision. And I, in the beginning of those 5 years, I also really wasn't keeping records either. So I have very little write-offs for my non-filing years where I didn't file my taxes even. And now, I don't get to have write-offs for those years and the accruing interest because I didn't pay it to begin with. So don't be like me, pay your taxes.
yeah, I'm scared of prison, so I didn't do that.
Except this year.
Listen, I did pay my taxes, I just didn't pay them yet. I'm doing it. But,
But it's hard.
yes.
That's like, it's a really hard thing to do,
It
to
is.
be in charge of your own, like, income like that, when you're full mastery of it. Cause like, I have $20,000 sitting in a bank account that's not mine. It's Uncle Sam's.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to like not tap into that, like, say, like, I need a root canal or something like that. And like, it's, you see all this money in your bank account, but like, you can't spend it, cause if you do, like, you're in big trouble. So I'd say that tattooing requires a lot of self-discipline, and a self-starting attitude, because no one is telling you to do this stuff. Like, you have to do it yourself.
Usually you're fighting people, telling them why it's a good idea to become a tattoo artist, and everyone's like, nope. It's hard, but it's worth it. And it is my dream career, and I'm lucky that I was correct. I absolutely love it. It's my biggest passion.
And
And
if you're not passionate about it, then you'll quit.
yes, that's kind of my idea with the whole, so many people saturating the market and going to school. Yeah, there's a lot of people who are going to school for it. But like I said, I went to school with like 40, 50 people. Only 10 other of those people are still tattooing. And usually when you're in tattoo school, we're making bets on who's gonna be tattooing within 3 years. They definitely looked at me and were like, she's out, she's not gonna be here. And here I am 5 years later, still tattooing.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, so in tattoo school, do they teach you like about how to work on different types of skin? So like scars, older skin, you know, skin, because older skin is like loses elasticity, right? And so, you know, if you're doing like somebody who has eczema, or if they have different autoimmune, like just knowing how skin receives ink and responds to needlework, and maybe it has to be broken up. So like that part of like, you're actually drawing on a medium that isn't,
That changes.
That
It's different.
changes.
Every
Mhm.
person's gonna be different, and
Yes.
if you've been tattooing for a while, you like literally feel the difference. Like sometimes it'd be like, I call that butter skin, because it's like so smooth, bouncy, and then you've got like a more paper type texture, like someone that's like has way more mature skin. Like my Nana, she was terrifying to tattoo. Like I tattooed her and it was just like bruises would blossom, and they would look horrible when it was done, but like it would heal perfectly. But like it was really scary. I'd say in tattoo school,
I'd say bookwork. Bookwork, you learn a lot about that.
yeah, there's only so much that you can really relay to a person.
Yeah,
When it comes to like applying a tattoo, because you really learn best by practicing.
mhm.
And so,
And asking questions.
yeah, like if I were just starting out, like I would not tattoo someone who was like had fragile skin, because like you don't really know what you're doing. And it's really easy to mess a tattoo up on someone with really fragile skin. So you really get most of that knowledge out of just like pure experience. My mentor, he was more of a hands-off kind of guy. He would check in, you know, like making sure he was doing okay. But at the point that I was doing tattoo school, like he was retired. He didn't tattoo at all. And so his philosophy was that you learn by doing. And you learn by practicing. And I'd say Jess had a lot younger teachers than I did, but I'd say it was probably pretty similar to you. Like there's words that you can express to someone, like their skin's gonna be really fragile, so you don't press as hard. But if you don't, and like you start doing that and you realize like, well, I'm not pressing as hard, but like the ink's not going in now. And like you really have to tailor it to the individual person, which there's so many different skin types out there. Like there's no way that someone could like teach you that with words necessarily. Like you literally have to learn by doing.
Yeah,
And it's important to do things that are within your capabilities when you're starting out, because if you are, you know, a brand new tattoo artist, you've been doing it for like a few weeks and you attempt to do a portrait or something, like that's a recipe for disaster, you know. Like you should really be doing things that are simple to start off with, basic line work, simple designs, and then once you get the fundamentals of like how to apply a tattoo, then you can start getting fancy and start doing like more expressive art and doing experiments. And you know, you'll have friends that'll be like, yeah, you can try this new technique on me, because you've been doing it for a while and you have a little more skill that will give you a good foundation to try different things.
that being said, please do not go on Amazon and buy a cheap tattoo machine and start tattooing your friends.
That's probably the
Please
worst
don't.
way.
We call those scratchers and kitchen wizards, and they're not respected in the tattoo industry.
There are tattoo artists that
That
are
have
very
started that way,
famous
yes.
and are incredibly talented. And some of them do start off that way, but it is a hard road because you're not going to get any respect until you're great.
Yes.
And so that
Yeah.
whole like initial period where like you're experimenting on people with no direction and no education, like no one's gonna think anything good about you until you can prove to them that like all of it was worth it because you're finally good now.
I just want to say that because I was gifted a tattoo machine for my 16th Christmas. And then that next month, I went to the job shadow at Destination Ink. And I talked to her old boss, Nick, about it. And I was like, yeah, I have this tattoo machine at home that I never use. And he was like, don't even think about touching it. You know, they'll usually come with fake skin to tattoo on. It's nothing like real skin. You're not going to do yourself any favors. You're going to create bad habits that are going to be hard to get out of. So what Nick had recommended to me and what I would recommend to you is just draw. Practice your drawing. Colored pencils are really good to practice with.
That was my medium.
Yeah.
Color pencil, and the other really popular tattoo artist medium would be watercolor.
Yes.
And it doesn't like a lot of people when they think about watercolor painting it's like washy, blotchy kind of artwork, but you can actually do a lot of precision with watercolors if you use less water. And that is a really great way. I'd say watercolor, it has a better like color theory than colored pencils. Like I think that watercolor theory translates better to tattooing than colored pencil does, but colored pencil gives you a like better like precision and like especially with like lining.
Yes.
Like getting control of like lines and stuff like that. And I'd say before I started doing color pencil and watercolors, I was a Sharpie artist a lot like Jess here. I was drawing all over my pants and friends and stuff like that. So being a proficient artist is like a really important part of it.
Yeah.
But like I said before, like, you don't have to be amazing to start off with, like, the drive, is even more important than being a fantastic creator of art.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Do we have any more questions?
Is color theory like a huge part of tattooing?
If you wanna do color tattoos.
Yeah.
Yeah. But a lot of tattoo artists don't even do color, you know, there's tattoo artists that like never do color tattoos. So yes, if that's the style of art that you're interested.
What I will say about color is that something in tattooing you have to think about is, with tattooing, when you're doing a tattoo, it's all open skin, everything that you've already tattooed. So when you're coloring, you're usually supposed to start with your darker colors first, and then you go to your lighter colors. Because if you color yellow on someone, and then you do black, your yellow's gonna get really muddy and muted.
Stained.
Stained is what we call it,
It's
so.
it's usually superficial, but sometimes
Yes.
it's not.
Yeah. That's all I have to say about
Okay.
color theory.
Oh, I was gonna bring something up. And for watercolor, the thing that isn't, you know, obviously it doesn't translate perfectly because in watercolors you start with the lightest colors and then you go to the darker ones. So it is kind of opposite, but when you're talking about like blending colors together to achieve like the color you really want, like watercolor is gonna get you there, like through. Like it'll make more sense to your brain in watercolors than it will with color pencils, because the color pencils, it's just like, that's the color that you draw it out, or you have to layer with colored pencils, and that's just like not really how tattooing works, in color theory, so probably doesn't make a lot of sense unless if you already do painting, but, pick up some watercolors and get some color pencils if you're interested in tattooing, that's my moral.
Yeah.
That's smart.
What I wanna mention is that, when you wanna become a tattoo artist, you have to go to tattoo school, obviously.
In Oregon.
In Oregon. And then, if you wanna become a tattoo artist, but you don't wanna go to tattoo school, you can learn how to tattoo. Some people do this where they'll go and do an apprenticeship in Washington. But the only thing about that is that if you learn how to tattoo in any other state, it might be easier and it might be cheaper. But the only way that you could ever end up tattooing in Oregon after that is you have to do, you have to tattoo out of state for 3 years
With tax returns.
with tax returns. So as
Wow.
long as you do your taxes and it says that you were a tattoo artist somewhere else for 3 whole years, you can come and tattoo here. But that is where a lot of tattoo artists end up messing up, is you'll get a tattoo artist who's been tattooing in California for 10 years. They've never once did taxes, and they'll come here and they're all confused. I've been tattooing for 10 years. What are you talking about? I can't be a tattoo artist here. Where's your proof? By law, you've never been a tattoo artist. So if you want to go the easy route and go up to Vancouver and become a tattoo artist over there, just because you want to end up tattooing here one day, go tattoo there for 3 years, but do your taxes and then you can come back. But it might be more expensive, but it's a faster route to become a tattoo artist here. And then you can tattoo in any other state with your license here too.
Yeah, because it has like the strictest licensing requirements. Your Oregon tattoo license can transfer to basically any other state,
Yes.
but not vice versa.
Mhm. And so when you go to tattoo school, you get that finished, you finish your hours, you pay however much. When I went to school, it was $7,000, so I paid him $7,000 for my schooling.
Mine was 9.
And then, after that, you go to, health licensing office,
Which is in Salem.
is in Salem, and you pay, how much did you pay?
$75.
$75? I swear it was more than that. I feel like it was like $150.
I think there's multiple fees.
Yes, so to take the test,
It's not
I
that
think
crazy.
it was somewhere around $100 to take the test.
Feels like a lot when you don't make any money.
Yeah, I think that you can take it up to 3 times. And if you fail the first time, you have to wait 2 weeks to take it the second time. If you fail the second time, you have to wait a month. And then the third time, I don't even know what happens the third time. I
I
didn't
think
look
you
that far
have
into
to
it.
take a break. You have to like take a break for a while and they won't let you do it for like maybe a few months.
Yeah,
What's the
Interesting.
test?
What is the test?
Yeah.
Oh, that's why I was thinking
Computer
of 300.
test.
It's a computer test. The health licensing office, you're there with like nurses and hairstylists and aesthetics people. Everyone who has to take a licensing test in Oregon usually takes it at the health licensing office. You just go and you do the computer test. And I think it's around 300 questions that they have on there, but it's only 150 questions. And a lot of them are backwards. So I failed the first time, I'll admit that, because, lots of things. But I had dyslexia, so I get scared with tests, and, reading is pretty hard for me sometimes, so I kept reading things backwards in the wrong way, and they'll put trick questions in there. So there was a question in there that I failed both times because I read it wrong. But it was about garbage and, like, for instance, you can throw regular garbage, like I can throw your Dutch cup away in my hazard bin, but you can't throw away a bloody napkin in a regular bin. So hazard garbage versus clientele garbage. So that was switched around both times and I messed it up because I read it wrong. But they just had trick questions like that on the test. So that's why they have 300 questions, but you'll only have to do 150. So they'll have a bunch of different stuff. And they ask you questions about how to build a tattoo machine. They'll ask you questions.
What kind of skin lesions are not okay to tattoo over?
Yeah.
The answer is none of them.
Yeah. Yeah, none of them. There's just a bunch of different questions. I think it's Quizlet. Quizlet has different quizzes. That's how it helped me. But when you go to tattoo school, they don't give you a book for tattooing.
I did.
You're lucky. That's illegal in Oregon.
No, it's not like a book. It was a
The
packet.
Oh, packet. Yeah, they give you a packet because they're not allowed to give you. There's like 5 books that were made that they made the test off of, and
I didn't get like answer.
oh no, not the answer book, but yeah, just studying. They don't give you a book to study off of. So you need to go through your packet and you highlight and you take notes.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you're kind of screwed.
The packet's gonna be different for every school because
Yes.
each school is actually in charge of creating their own curriculum.
Yes.
So that's another important thing about choosing your school. And, Jess has like been a great success, but as you have heard, most of her like other classmates were not, and they don't tattoo today. And I'd say that was because it was Captain Jack's.
It was like a puppy mill.
And the school that I went to, there was an interview process. You'd only really accept people that he thought had promise and would be successful in the industry. So, most of the people that I went to school with are tattooing today. Another interesting thing about the testing process though, is that in Oregon, permanent makeup is under the same license as body art tattooing. And there are questions about permanent makeup in the test, which at the time I was really upset about because I didn't learn anything about doing brows or lip liner or eyeshadow or anything like that. But now I do permanent makeup and I didn't have to do any like additional licensing in Oregon to do it. I just took some training courses in Washington and California to do brows. And by the way, if anyone has any questions about permanent makeup, I'm totally happy to answer them. I did Jess's brows. Those are tattooed. I did those. And I do imagine adding like lip blush to my service as well. And another thing I like to add is that at Destination Ink, there was a piercer as well. So if anyone has like piercing questions, curious about being a piercer, I'm decently comfortable answering basic questions on those.
How often do you have to renew your license?
Oh, I was gonna mention that too. Yeah, so when you're done taking the test, if you pass, you go and you get your license, you pay $50 for it. And then you have to renew your license once a year. And if you're late to it, they double it, so you pay $100. If you do not renew your license within 3 years, you have to go back to school to become a tattoo artist. So even if you're done tattooing and you don't want to tattoo anymore, we all say like, just keep renewing your license.
Did you anticipate maybe getting back into it?
Yes, also, when you renew your license, you also have to do continuing education, which you have to do 10 hours of.
I kind of a
And-
beef with that though, but
Yeah, well, so you can do continuing education with YouTube videos. You can go into a class. They have PCC classes
There's
on
actually
tattooing.
a PCC class called Who Owns a Tattoo? So it's kind of going into the question you asked earlier. I did take that class. It was like 2 hours or something like that. But your continuing education is actually supposed to be 10 hours
Yes.
annually. And they make it really confusing and hard to do. That's all.
I got away with it a little bit. I went and flew to Tampa to get a tattoo from someone, and I talked to him the entire time about tattooing, and was talking to him about continuing education, and he was like, "Why are you mad about it? You're getting it right now." And I was like, "I'm getting a tattoo right now. What are you talking about?" And he was like, "You did nothing but ask me questions this entire time. I think this counts." So I got to use that as continuing education. Also the health licensing office, online will have, they'll have examples for you. You also have to renew your bloodborne pathogens once a year, which,
It's like kind of get like the food handler's card
Yeah.
of tattooing. It's pretty simple. It asks you basic questions on what to do with blood and
Yes.
how not to do it badly. You know,
it's like a 15-question test.
Yeah,
Something like
it's
that.
really easy.
Yeah,
But
it's
and
just 20
honestly,
bucks every year.
it's very easy. But one of the most important part about tattooing,
Yes.
is cross contamination and not making people sick or hurting people.
Mhm.
That is like if anything else, you don't want to hurt people. You
It's
know,
like one of the biggest reasons you go to school in Oregon is to not give people HIV, AIDS, infect their tattoo, give them staph.
Hep C is the
Hep
big
C,
one,
yeah.
actually.
Mhm.
I don't think there's any record of anyone getting HIV from a tattoo, but there's a lot of cases of hepatitis C, which is
Mhm.
incurable.
Yeah.
Do you guys have to carry, or is it optional to carry liability insurance in case something happens? Like, there's no,
It's optional. We have it.
We have incident insurance for the building. We don't have tattoo.
Oh, true. We didn't look at that.
Yes.
But yes, but yeah, it's with tattooing, it's hard. Normal insurance places, don't want to because it's scary and, out of control, but there's like specific tattoo insurance, places that you could go
Yeah.
through.
It doesn't cost that much.
No.
We should get it.
Yeah.
so with that, then, since you have to be so careful about cross-contamination and the hygiene and the cleanliness of the environment, can you be like a mobile tattoo artist who just goes to
Yes.
people's homes and
No.
does that? Or can you,
So-
set up on a street
You can actually
corner
get a
and?
tattoo trailer and
Yes.
do that. That is a license you can get in Oregon, is be a traveling trailer tattoo artist. There's also temporary licenses for
Events.
conventions.
Yes.
Yes, so you can have like, just pay Oregon enough to like let them tattoo in the state for like a few days.
Mhm.
So if you go to a tattoo convention and people from all around the world or the US are there, that's why they're able to tattoo in Oregon for that event, is because they paid for a temporary license.
Yes. Or like if you want to do an event, like I'm gonna be doing weddings here soon, and I'll have to pay for an events licensing for that specific
Do
place.
wedding tattoos?
Yeah.
What?
I've been
Okay,
asked about it lately.
we'll talk about that later.
But yes, so even though I said that it's hard to tattoo here when you don't have a license here, like Christina was saying, you just have to talk to HLO or what are they? Health Licensing Office, HLO, and, ask them for that. They just want lots of money from me, but it's fine.
So you can't go into somebody's home and
No.
go tattoo.
That would be illegal.
Yes, that'd be
Yes.
illegal. I'm sure there's people that do that, but
Yeah,
Big deal.
there really isn't a terrible amount of oversight. But if you want to be successful in this career, if you tattoo at home, no one is going to hire you.
Yeah.
So there's that. Because
Yeah.
the reason being that if you're teaching yourself in your house, as Jess was saying, that you're teaching yourself bad habits. And what we mean by bad habits means that like you are tattooing without base knowledge of cross-contamination and how not to hurt people. And if you are applying tattoos to people and you do like, I don't know, 20, 30 tattoos, and then you get hired at a job and then they realize like, oh, you touch stuff that you're not supposed to touch all the time, and you're using your phone while you tattoo, and like, you'll probably get fired pretty quick if you're doing that. But if you go to tattoo school, or have an apprenticeship, you already have a base knowledge of the things you can and can't do. So, don't tattoo at home.
Yeah.
So are there like requirements in terms of like what qualifies as like a studio? So if somebody like has like a home studio, is that like
That-
legally like?
One
If
thing,
you have a
yes, I was about to say that, you have to have a sink that's not in a bathroom, because you need to be able to get to a sink after tattooing without touching any doorknobs.
or toilets
Or
nearby.
toilets, or, yeah, exactly. Oh, and then it has to be, there's a certain amount of feet that it needs to be within your station.
Oh, really?
I think it's like 10, 15 feet.
Yeah, it's probably not that big.
Yeah,
So yes, I meant you can tattoo at home if you have a home office that's licensed by Oregon.
yes.
And they will come and do a little inspection in theory.
Mhm.
But first, I think you just have to like say that you've met all the criteria, you send it in. And then if they want to, they'll come check in on you and make sure that it was all true. Like, we have yet to be inspected at Fern Gully.
Yeah.
Though we've been in business for almost a year.
Mhm.
Yeah. And it's sort of interesting, like a lot of the tattoo studios, they are friends with each other, and so when the HLO like inspection person starts making their rounds, a lot of the tattoo studios will like call each other up and let them know that like they're in town and stuff like that. But I don't know, Destination Ink always got perfect scores.
Mhm.
You know, I think
Yeah.
we need to label some more things.
I don't know, I thought, I labeled everything that said needed to be labeled.
I need to put a label on my Madison book.
Yeah, yeah, you do. My Madison both said Madison. Yes, like she said, lots of labels, everything has to be labeled. When cleaning, you use Maticide. That is one thing when I'll get clients who will talk to me about cheap tattoos they got out of someone's garage or their kitchen. And they'll go, they had gloves on. They wrapped all their surfaces were wrapped with saran wrap. But I'm like, was their machine wrapped? Did you see them put that new needle in there? Where are they disposing of their needles? When you dispose of needles, you have to dispose of them in a sharps container. And then, what are they using? Are they using Maticide to clean down everything? Or are they using Lysol wipes? Because that's not the same at all. It's disgusting.
What's Madison?
Maticide is a tuberculocidal chemical, so that means that it can kill the tuberculosis virus.
Yes.
And other synonyms would be like cathicide. It can come in a spray form or a towel, a pre-formed towel with wet.
Yeah.
But
Most
it
of us
is
use the same Maticide
part
bottle.
of the tools of the trade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there any questions?
Let me look at my notes. Hard things about tattooing. Did you have a question?
I was thinking of one. I was thinking of how to construct the save. So if you don't recommend going on Amazon, buying a chicken scratch, do you have like brand names for like tattoos that are like good?
Like
So-
tattoo machines?
So
Yeah.
here's
What do you
the
think?
deal. So there in Portland, there's only one tattoo supply store. It's called Coalition, and you're only allowed in there if you have a tattoo license, or if you are an apprentice under someone who has a tattoo license, and then you have to call your mentor and be like, I promise. So you're not allowed in there. But also online, there are tattoo supply stores, but to even buy a tattoo machine, you have to put in your tattoo license. So I'd say all of your best,
All your best
equipment,
products that
yeah,
you get.
you're gonna need a
There's some
license to get.
gatekeeping
Yes.
involved.
To be fair, it's for a good reason, so you guys don't give each other diseases or bad, ugly tattoos. I have seen good tattoos done by people who don't have licenses and who tattoo at home. But I still don't recommend it. I
Yeah.
usually look at them and I'm like, it's good. It grosses me out, but it looks cute.
I think that there would be some benefit if you have the self-control to practice on, like, I tattooed grapefruits for like months before I got to tattoo any one person.
Yeah.
And I was learning about cross-contamination and stuff like that before I got to do that. But if you had a tattoo machine and some fake skin, like, I don't think that that's bad.
Yeah,
Like, you could, and I think the positive of that would be is that tattooing is so different from drawing or art. It's not like holding a pencil or a marker or anything like that. This is a machine that often has a cord, it's thick, it vibrates. You're tattooing on surfaces that are uneven and stretchy and stuff like that. And so it actually takes a lot of like fine muscle development in order to get the control to produce good tattoos. And so in theory, like a lot of tattoo artists start tattooing not on people, they start tattooing on fake skin or fruit and stuff like that. And that will help you build the muscles in your hands to make you able to wield the machine on skin. And so like if you can have the control to tinker around on fake skin and a cheap tattoo machine, I don't think that's bad. Like,
Yeah.
I think that's honestly totally fine, as long as you're not like actually trying to mark yourself for other people until you get the proper knowledge of how not to hurt others.
yeah. So if you want to tattoo some grapefruits, because I used to do that too. But for your question about what kind of tattoo machines we recommend, Christina and I both use Cheyenne's.
I just got a new one the other day,
Got a new
though.
one?
It's coming in the mail. It's like a Ferrari tattoo machine. I'm very excited about it. I actually got myself some practice skin because it's so adjustable that I'm curious what I can do with it. So I got myself some skin. And I'm really excited about it. But there are definitely like nice brands that you can go. Oh, something that we haven't talked about in tattoo machines is the two schools. You've got coil tattoo machines and
yes.
rotary tattoo machines. Coil tattoo machines have been the industry standard in the United States and abroad for quite a while. Before the coil tattoo machine, it was more like,
Sabori.
yeah, like
Stick and poke.
manual stick and poke style. And the coil tattoo machines are the ones where like the classic like buzz sound, like
Yeah.
that is a coil tattoo machine. I'd say a lot of people got into the industry less so about like because they're interested in art and more because it was more like Motorhead type quality. Like you got to tinker with the machine and it was like so like machine oriented for a long time. And in the last like 15 years, the rotary tattoo machine has come on board and it had like no respect for quite a while. I kind of jumped onto the rotary like bandwagon, not like the earliest as people, but like earlier than most people. And interestingly, in the last 7 years since I've been using my rotary, I would say it is now industry standard.
Yeah.
And I think that goes to show that things are changing a lot.
What's the big difference between the two?
So rotary tattoo machine, it is completely encapsulated in its own little casing. So like the entire mechanism of making the needle go up and down, you don't get to see any of those mechanics. Versus in the coil tattoo machine, you can see every part of it. You can tune it, you can replace parts. If something breaks, you can replace it yourself. And so there's like a really intimate like relationship that you can have with your tattoo machines if you're a coil artist. Versus a rotary tattoo machine, if it breaks, you got to buy a new one, like, or send it in to get replaced. Like, there's nothing that you can do with it. So, there's pros and cons to that. The big difference for me, is that if you were to use a old fashioned like coil tattoo machine, the needle bar is what you would be using. And that doesn't really mean much to you guys, but it, like I said, like you can see all the parts versus a rotary tattoo machine. It's much more quiet and you get to use what we call cartridges. And that makes cleaning a lot easier. If you,
Makes changing out the needle a lot easier and faster too.
it also means that you don't have to have an autoclave. An autoclave is for a long time was like an absolutely necessary part of any tattoo studio. And
Yeah,
it's
you
often-
couldn't open a studio without an autoclave.
I'd say it's the most expensive piece of equipment in the shop. Upwards of thousands of dollars. And they're quite small. An autoclave, does anyone know what an autoclave is? No. An autoclave is basically a pressurized oven so that you put your reusable tattoo supplies in. And what the pressurized oven does is that it kills bacteria, not just by heat, but with the pressure, it can like crack the shells of viruses and bacteria that are unkillable by chemicals. And so it's like a superheated, super pressurized oven that will kill everything inside except for your reusable equipment. If you go the rotary route, that means that you don't have to have the autoclave because you have disposable cartridges that you just throw out every time. So we don't have an autoclave at Fern Gully Studio. And I really like that. It means that I don't have to scrub tubes. That doesn't mean anything to you either, but that means a lot less cleaning involved. It is more expensive though. That's the downside. So, but in tattooing, like time is money. So the fact that I spend less time cleaning means that I get to spend more time making money, you know? So I really like our rotaries. They're lighter, it's a lighter weight. Carpal tunnel is like a really big,
It's a really big thing in the tattoo industry.
yeah, and it's bad. You know, like I said, Mike just got carpal tunnel surgery not long ago and he's a piercer.
Cause you have a machine that's vibrating in your hand constantly and you're trying to like be still with it. So that'll give you carpal tunnel versus, there's two different types of rotaries too. There's rotaries that look like coil machines. And then there's rotaries that are we call pens that look like just a giant Sharpie.
There's brushless motors and brush motors.
Yes,
All that stuff.
a lot of little things. But yeah, I think another thing that's different with rotaries versus coils, which is what I like, is that with coil machines, tattoo artists used to have, when you would go to conventions, they'd have like 15 machines with them.
Because
don't
each
do that
coil,
anymore.
yeah, each coil machine would be tuned
Yes.
to do a specific job. So you
Mhm.
have one machine that's really good at lining, and you have
Yes.
another machine that's really good at black and gray, smooth black and gray blends. You have
Yes.
another machine that really packs in color for you when you want like strong, bold colors.
Mhm.
Versus a lot of rotary machines are a lot more versatile. So our Cheyenne pens, they can do it all. And another thing, that's one of the reasons I'm really excited about my new machine that I just bought is because it's actually a lot more adjustable than the machine that I've been using to date. And the Cheyenne pen, it's not really known for doing great line work. I make it work, you know, we make it work, but
Mhm.
it's not like, it doesn't excel in that category. And this new machine that I'm gonna be getting soon, like I can actually take it apart and put in a new piece in there, which is actually quite novel for that. And it's actually the same engineers that made our Cheyenne pen that made this machine. So I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, so with coil machines, you'll have like 3 or 4 sitting on your tattoo station, ready for you to use, that have all their own different, needle bars and, I don't even know what they're called anymore, I haven't even used them in so long. Tubes.
Oh, yes.
Versus, your pen that has, cartridges just laying on the table, waiting for you to take yours out and pick up a new one. So much easier, so much faster, so much more room for activities. So.
Did I do
yes.
any of your tattoos with oil, or was I already using the rotary?
Yeah, no, you were using rotary. Yeah. Coils hurt a lot more. I've had a lot of clients, tell me that it psychologically makes you think you're in more pain because it's so loud and in your face. Rotaries are known for being very gentle, and quiet, a lot more soothing. Yeah.
But people don't
That's what I
like to change, you know, especially in an industry like this.
Mhm.
Change comes with a lot of pain in the beginning, and like I was saying before, rotary's got no respect for a long time. There's a lot of tattoo artists who be like, it's not a real tattoo if it wasn't done by a coil machine. But people like me didn't really care, so they kept using them. And it turns out like my clients liked it better, my tattoos turned out better, and that was the more important thing to me than getting the approval of people
More
who
traditional
didn't
artists.
respect me, you know? I think that's another thing that we should probably talk a little bit more about is just like the different types of personalities that you can get in tattooing. And one thing that I think makes tattooing so special, as I was saying at the very beginning of this whole thing, is that you get to be the master of your own career, and as most self-employed careers. And so there's going to be a lot of different ways to approach this business. And I really like that I get to choose for myself how I'm gonna do business. I think that's really awesome. You can meet, like, if you go to different shops, there's going to be different like subcultures in tattooing, depending on what kind of shop you walk into. You can go into a shop and like, this is a biker shop. You can go into a shop and be like, oh, this is like,
Hipstery shop.
yeah, like they do like more stick and poke style stuff, or like you go into another studio and you know it's
You come
like,
into ours and it's very floral and neo-trad.
So I think that if you're looking for a job, you're gonna have to find a place where your personality fits in, not just your artwork. And sometimes it doesn't fit very well, and so you're gonna move on to a new spot. And that's okay. Yeah. You don't have to be liked by everybody.
Yeah, no. There's too many tattoo artists here anyways. Because there's so many tattoo artists in Portland, it gets really cliquey. When I talk to my clientele about it, I like to say that like, there's like the more traditional biker tattoo artists. And then there's like the hipstery, everything needs to change kind of
And
artists.
they hate each other.
Yes, they absolutely hate each other. Christina and I are in between because I feel like we were both raised in biker shops, but then we're also younger, feminine people, and we're like, yeah, but change is good. So
I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that hate us.
yeah, exactly.
I don't care. I don't care about them.
There's some you know, hipstery ways of looking at things that I'm like, okay, but you know, tradition is good sometimes. And then there's some traditional tattoo artists where I'm like, get with the times, get over yourself. You think you're so much cooler than everyone. And honestly, both sides think that way. Hipstery tattoo artists think they're way better than you for their own reasons, and then traditional tattoo artists think they're better than you for their own reasons.
Every person that's gonna talk to you about tattooing thinks that their way is the right way. I think that's something I told you very early.
Yes.
Too, was
Yeah.
that like, people are gonna be like, this is the only way that you can do this job. And it's just like, it's not true. There's so many ways that you can approach anything in this career, and I think that's the beauty of it. I love being self-employed for that very reason. But being self-employed is also really hard too. So it depends on like your kind of personality. If you like having structure, if you like being part of a team, if you like having like guidance, like tattooing probably isn't going to be something that you'll thrive in, because you're not gonna have that like go get 'em attitude, you know, like, and not to say that like working a like W-2 type job, which is, sorry, that's lingo, but having a more typical job, there's like really great things to be had from a normal job as well. Benefits, health insurance, you get to go home at the end of the day and just be at home. You know, when I go home at the end of the day, I call it my second shift. I go home and I start answering emails and I start drawing, and my husband feels like he's sitting in my office, like typing around on my computer and stuff. The work-life balance becomes a lot more complicated when you are self-employed. But you have so much power to do what you want. Like, I get to take off months at a time for vacation. I went to Cambodia for 6 months and I came back and I still had a tattoo job, you know, like you don't get to do that when you have a more normal type job. I really love traveling, and I travel abroad at least once a year. And I get to take off as much time as I want, and I love tattooing, but I also love relaxing and not working too. So I tend to take off quite a bit of time because it makes me happy. And that's something that like maybe I didn't really have the ability to do when I was first starting out because like I just like needed to make money. But now that I am where I am now, like I have so much more power and flexibility to create my schedule the way that I want. Like right now, I take like an hour break between tattoos because I love the idea of a siesta. So I get to go home and I make myself lunch, we can play a little bit of Mario Kart, and then I go home again, or then I go to work again and do another tattoo, and then I go home, and it's like that's really special to me. I love that the flexibility and the power that I have to create my schedule the way that suits me.
Another cool thing about traveling while you're a tattoo artist is that you really can work from wherever. So you can, thankfully with Instagram, you can DM tattoo shops of where you want to go travel. Or you could call them and be like, hey, can I come guest in your shop? And they'll see your portfolio. And if they want to, you can go and tattoo there on your vacation. Even if it's just for a day, you get to write your whole vacation off. Your food, your transportation, your plane there, your hotel. You just went on a business trip because you went to tattoo there. Say you wanted to go to Hawaii, you planned all these things, and last minute you're like, I'll go tattoo while I'm there. Full trip, right off. So that's what's cool about tattooing.
I like that part.
Mhm.
And like Jess, she's got 3-year-old now? Is it almost 3?
Mhm, almost 3.
Yeah, and she's got like a really cool plan of, you know, busting ass right now, and then when her kid gets to be school age, she's gonna start working a little less, so she can spend more time with her kid, and like that power to be able to like morph your career into like whatever shape it needs to be to like fit the rest of your life. That's a great positive.
You get to make your own schedule, which is really nice. Which in the beginning, obviously, you kind of have to work with whatever you can. And during slow season, you usually do too. Which is right now. That's also something I wanted to talk about. Tattooing. There's a lot of different trades that have slow seasons. Tattoo slow season is usually from like November until February. It's because of the holidays. Nobody has money around this time, so they're busy doing other things.
Buying presents.
Yeah, buying presents. And then in January, nobody has money because you were buying presents last month and now you're broke because of it. And also you don't have any appointments in January because nobody booked them in December because they were busy with holidays. But then everything starts to pick up in February because everyone gets their taxes back and come spend it on me.
Yeah.
So that's fun.
So it's sort of a feast or famine sort
Yeah.
of oscillation. So yeah, right after the slowest part of the year, you have the busiest part of the year.
Yes. So I would say March gets really busy because of tax season, and then it gets a little normal from like April to May, and then June to October are like our busiest months because everyone's out at the beach, you're half naked, you see someone else's tattoo and you're like, I want that.
I want to look hot like that.
Yeah, exactly. Or like, you know, we help people that have confidence issues who are like, you know,
Yeah,
I'm not,
I love that.
yeah, I'm not a big fan of this part of my body and I would like to put some artwork here to feel beautiful.
Also, we do get to do special things like covering self-harm scars.
Yes,
This
yeah.
can be a really beautiful process.
Mhm.
I love that. And then just like the meaning that some people have and some tattoos can be really special.
Mhm.
Like the other day, I just did a mother-daughter tattoo for some people, and the tattoo was designed by their grandma, which kind of goes in, whoever asked if I think it was you earlier. I do tattoos that are designed by other people when it's special, because it
Yes.
just makes me happy.
Yeah, usually we'll fix them up a little bit to
Make
make
it
them actually
tattooable.
look like a tattoo and tattooable. But yes, we usually will do a tattoo that you design, but if you bring us something from Pinterest, we're gonna change it a little bit. Unless it's a butterfly, then if it's a butterfly, it's fine.
But a little bit more on the feast or famine aspect is that it's important to save money
Yes.
for a
yeah,
rainy day. I think that's, you know, with any job, it's more saving money, whatever. But for tattooing, it's especially important
Yes.
if you're self-employed, because there's gonna be weeks where like maybe you didn't make as much money, or you got a ton of cancellations because COVID happened and
Mhm.
everyone's sick.
Yes.
Or they're scared to come get tattooed by you because they don't want to get sick, you know?
You'll make lots of money in July and you'll wanna spend it all, and then you're gonna come to December and you're gonna be like, I can't buy Christmas gifts because nobody's coming to get tattooed. So you better have a savings. You better have a savings for tax season, and you better have a savings for a rainy day, and you better have a savings
For your
just
equipment.
for equipment, and you better have a savings just for slow season. And this actually is one of the slowest slow seasons of tattoo artists ever, because the economy is so bad right now, and that's been a topic in the industry right now, is how bad the slow season is, which most trades are like that right now. But you just have to remember that when you're self-employed, that it's not always going to be rainbows and butterflies. And even if you think after a few years that you're doing really well, it's always something's going to happen.
Yeah, it's ever evolving.
Yeah.
And another interesting thing, I feel like in my career, like every year has been different from the last. Every single year, it's really fascinating. And it doesn't have to be that way. A lot of people will plateau and tattoo the same way that they did when they did 5 years ago, and they never change. But I think in order to stay relevant in this industry, you have to get with the times, you have to change, because if I were to not change in 10 years from now, like, I think that's a really big missed opportunity for growth, which is sort of important when you're talking about like art and what's in fashion and what people actually want these days. Like, you know,
Yeah, I was gonna have a question about that. How do you kind of navigate like the tattoo trends and how they kind of evolve? And it's like one thing's in for a few months or so, and then next, and you have a lot of people like wanting that specific style, or like how do you kind of navigate that world?
some people just won't tattoo trends.
Yeah.
But I like money, so
I like tattoo trends. I think they're fun.
yeah.
I
and
love doing
not all
back
trends are
stamps.
bad, you know?
Doing what?
The stamps on your lower back. That's fun when it's come back from the 90s.
I hope it goes back even more.
Yeah.
That's the sad one. Like, I think that the lower back is honestly a really flattering place to get tattooed, but
Yes.
the phrase tramp stamp is like scarred people from like
Yeah.
wanting to get a tattoo in that location. Unfortunately, because I think it was actually really cute.
Yeah, people have made it seem trashy, and I'm sure some can be, but as tattoo artists, it's one of the best places to tattoo, and it can be so pretty if you just let us make it pretty.
When it comes to fads though, like I don't know, everything's got its heyday. When you look at like the 90s, you know, you've got like American Tribal is really popular, dolphins are really popular, mushrooms, like a little gnome on a mushroom is really popular, and it's now popular again. And like, it's interesting because like I'll look at people with, you know, sleeves that were done 10, 15 years ago and be like, yeah, you were following that like very clear trend right there. But I think that there's something charming to that in its own way. I'd say what are some trends right now? Fine line.
Bows. Have
Bows.
you seen that like little minimalistic bows and how
No.
they in like the 2000s people have to use bows?
I've
say
seen a lot
bows
of them
have
back
come
in the
back.
day.
Those
Yeah,
are also a 90s thing.
Yeah, that was
And now like the shape is like coming back. I've been seeing that one.
Yeah, I think it's fine. Like, I wasn't making a lot of money at the time, and someone comes to me with a fad tattoo. I'm like, yeah, I need the money. Like, I think especially like when you're starting out or like during slow season, like I don't really have the luxury at the moment to say no to everything. You know?
Yeah.
And like maybe in the summertime when it's like feast season,
Yeah.
like I get to turn down all sorts of ideas because like I'm only one person. I've got one hand. I got
There's
one
so
tattoo
many
hand.
tattoo artists in
And like,
Florida,
I
so it's-
literally can't tattoo everyone that is asking for something. But right now, like I said, I don't really have the luxury to turn down everything. So if someone comes to me and wants like a more like bad tattoo or whatever, I'd be more inclined to say yes when I don't have a lot of money.
I think a trendy tattoos right now are like fine line tattoos are really trendy. Fine line, traditional tattoo artists will tell you that those aren't gonna last. And I think it depends. I think it depends on the person who's doing it.
I think my fine line tattoos will this fine.
Yeah, so if you go to a fine line tattoo artist, it probably will. I think it depends on how small the tattoo is. I think that a fine line tattoo can blow out from how deep they go into your skin. Or if they don't go deep enough, the tattoo will just fall out, and so that won't last.
Does that mean like it spreads, or what do you mean like?
When a blowout is when it spreads, and
But
then,
the layer of skin that you're trying to achieve, like the depth of, is like very important. Consistency is like very important. And so when you go into the subcutaneous layer, which is like the fat layer of the skin, which is below your actual target dermal layer that you're trying to get for, it can actually spread from the point of origin and will just like bleed out. And that is a common like novice mistake.
yes. And it can happen to anyone. It happens
Yeah,
mainly to brand new tattoo artists.
but it
But
can happen to the best of us.
yeah, it also happens to tattoo artists who have been tattooing for 20 years. I mean, I went to Tampa and I got my tattoo and there were so many blowouts in it. But I have so many tattoos that I don't really notice.
Yeah, and it's also gorgeous still.
Yeah, I still love it. The art's pretty. So even though there's a bunch of blowouts, I'm like, whatever. But I think that fine line tattoos are really trendy right now. I think sticker tattoos are, when you just have like a bunch of random different tattoos. We call those sticker tattoos or patchwork.
Mushrooms.
Mushrooms
super in
are
right
very
now.
popular. They're popular in every industry right now. They're just like
That's it.
trendy right now.
Lions, very popular right now.
And I also think there's a difference between trendy, basic, and classic. Like people will tell
Roses
me
are classic.
those are classic. People will be like, are roses basic? No, roses aren't basic. I think roses can be looked at as basic, especially being from Portland because we're the city of roses. So you see a lot of people with rose tattoos here. But if you go anywhere else, that's not very basic. It's the classic tattoo.
And trends also change by region.
Yeah.
So in Portland, and I'd say specifically Portland trend, are deliberately bad tattoos.
Yeah.
Interestingly, like where people with tattoo licenses that tattoo in a studio, like the whole look is supposed to be like grunge.
Yeah.
And that's like a really big Portland thing. I'm not a huge fan of it, but like you go to Southern California and like Chicano art is like the standard there. So you're gonna get like a lot of lettering and black work and portraits and stuff like that. You go to like Canada and like neo trash is king.
Yeah.
You go to Europe and polka trash is like everywhere.
You go to Texas and American traditional is the most popular. Most Midwest is American traditional.
Mhm.
It's also because they have few tattoo artists there. And so most of the traditional mentors there are teaching you traditional tattoos.
And so I think fads are also very well impacted by just like what is available in that area.
Mhm.
And so if you live in an area where, like, say you live in Southern California, like you're more likely going to get a tattoo in a Chicano style just because that's what's available to you for the most part. And if you live in Portland and you really want like a street style, like SoCal tattoo, it's gonna be really hard to find someone to do that for you here. So you kind of have to like travel if you have like a vision of like what kind of style you want. Sometimes you have to like go to that place to get the thing that you want.
Can I ask, do you guys know what American traditional is?
I think
Yeah.
Sailor Jerry.
So American traditional has bold line work and they only have a few different colors that they work with. So the difference between American traditional and neo-traditional is neo-traditional has bold line work, but you're allowed to use smaller line weights. And then you're also allowed to use more colors. So that's the difference between neo-trad and American traditional. So we do very illustrative neo-traditional stuff because we use multiple colors, multiple line weights. But then fine line is when you're using very, very tiny thin lines. Black and gray work is obviously you're shading with black and grays and whites. Some people, I don't use grays, I use black and I use like washed down blacks. And I use just like the technique of me tattooing with whip shading to make a gray scale. And I put white highlights in tattoos. A lot of questions that I'll get in the tattoo studio are, because I put white highlights in tattoos, they'll be like, but doesn't white hurt more? White ink does not hurt more. It's the fact that it is the last thing you're tattooing and you're tattooing over areas that have already been tattooed. So yes, so tattooing over an area that's already been tattooed hurts. It's not the white that hurts. It's me going over already tattooed skin. And also color does not hurt more. Color is just packing and coloring. It can hurt more, but it's color itself doesn't hurt more. It's the technique of shading that hurts more.
And what hurts more is really dependent on the person too. Like I'll tattoo someone the same way, two different people the same way, and one person will think that the lines hurt a lot more, and then the other person will think that the color is excruciating. And
Yeah.
I didn't do anything differently.
Yeah. So everyone is different. It's the same thing with when people are like, well, don't your ribs hurt really bad? Usually people say that your ribs hurt because it's just skin on top of bones and, you know, a little less of meat in that area. But then also your stomach hurts really bad and you don't have a lot of, you know, all that there. So it just depends on the person. I've had people who cry their eyes out when I'm tattooing their ribs, and I've had people that are like, "You're tattooing me right now? Whoa!" So it depends. Does anybody have a tattoo yet? No. I got no 18-year-olds in here. Tattooed so many 18-year-olds this year. Well,
In Oregon, you have to be 18.
yes, Oregon is one of the few states where you actually have to be 18 here. There's no parents' consent.
No doctor's note.
No doctor's notes. When I was in high school, I had a lot of friends who would drive out of state to Idaho to get tattooed at 16 with their parents' consent.
I get super close to getting a tattoo at 16 in Hawaii, and then my mom chickened out last minute. So mad.
Yeah, I got tattooed on my 18th birthday. I got my entire sleeve tattooed because I knew I wanted to be a tattoo artist. And I was like, if I get my entire sleeve tattooed, I can't change my mind. And so I did that. But now looking back at it, as a tattoo artist, I wish that they would raise the age to like 21 or 25.
Most people's, most of the cover-ups I do are people's first tattoos.
Yes.
Yeah. They get done when they're 18. I got my first tattoo covered up with this one.
I love my sleeve, but this one wasn't done by Christina. This one was, but I am keeping this half, and then I'm gonna get this laser removed, and Christina will go over it. So I'm kind of doing the same thing.
Yeah, I'm also have a laser removal project I'm starting.
And what's cool when you're a tattoo artist is we're the reason laser tattoo removal has a job. So there's lots of people in Portland who will give tattoo removal for free to tattoo artists. So if you become a tattoo artist, you might be able to get free tattoo removal.
Not that that's a selling point.
It's not, but it's cool. But that being said, you still tip those people because they're doing service. I think it's really cool. But you know, being a tattoo artist would be cool, but also looking into doing trade for tattoo removal. That's also would be a really cool career too.
Was this like 2 or 3 hours?
We're actually 2.
Yeah. Okay. I think there's one thing that I kind of want to round out to end this, which is tattooing ethics a little bit. Which is, and it can be brief, but the fact being that like, as a tattoo artist, you are marking people's bodies, presumably permanently, unless that they go through the very painful and very expensive process of laser tattoo removal. And there's other removal techniques as well, which aren't guaranteed and can really damage your skin. Anyway, so part of being a tattoo artist for me is something that I find really important is ethics in tattooing, which is like making sure that you are helping people make good decisions and not bad decisions. And sometimes it's really important to say no to particular ideas because it's in the person's best interest. And you can go into detail or not with that person. Like you can kind of kick the can down the road and let it be someone else's problem to like explain to them why it's a bad idea. But I think it's really important before you mark anyone's body and touching them in like a really painful and expensive way that you think really hard about like what you want it to look like and what that person expects, and making sure that their expectations are accurate and actually something that is a product that you can deliver. You don't want to be taking people's money and delivering something that is going to follow them for literally the rest of their lives. I hear so many sad stories about people having really bad tattoo experiences or like being promised a certain image or product, and then at the end of the day, it's like something that really, instead of making them happy, it can be like something that makes them really sad. Like it can really ruin the person's self-esteem to have a bad tattoo. And so if anything, just like really consider like what you are capable of before you agree to tattoo anyone. and that you were confident in your own skills before taking on any project.
Yeah, if you want to be a tattoo artist, you need to practice and you need to be passionate and you need to be a good service provider. So just be a kind human and give to people what you would want given back to you.
Yeah, because their tattoos follow them forever, and it's it's an experience and a product that they will never forget.
Mhm.
So you want to make sure that's a good experience for
Yeah.
people.
They might be just one of your 7 clients that day, but you are.
You follow
one-
them forever.
Yeah, you're one of their.
They'll
3 or
never
4
forget
tattoo
you.
artists.
So,
So,
moral of the story:
Yeah.
be good.
Cool. Well, thank you guys so much. That was absolutely amazing.